Welcome to the 2017 Tour of Guangxi as the UCI World Tour wraps up, starting with Stage 1, the Beihai circuit race. Not a long day, just 107 kilometers on tap for the riders, but it would be a fast day with the winds greeting the riders down by the ocean. Teams getting prepared after flying in a couple days early for the Tour of Guangxi, getting the bicycles adjusted and ready for their riders after some tough travel for a lot of teams and a lot of riders, but everyone made it safely into Beihai. 16 World Tour teams on the roster here, with 2 pro-continental teams competing as well. Nippo Vini Fantini and Caja Rural, the Spanish team, also getting an invite to the Tour of Guangxi, the inaugural race. So here's Astana signing in earlier. They bring a strong team with Dario Cataldo leading the squad. Arman Kamyshev in the Kazakhstan national champions jersey. There's Bora Hansgrohe signing in with Pascal Ackermann wearing number 31 as their team leader. Lotto Soudal brought Thomas de Gent, number 61. And, of course, a lot of eyes on Caleb Ewan of the Orca Scott team, one of the top sprinters here, as we do expect a sprint finish today. He'll be going up against the Quick Step Floors team with standout young sprinter Fernando Gaviria, as that team got ready to do battle. So a lot of eyes on those 2 big World Tour teams. Trek Segafredo checking in without their team leader, so they start just 6 riders. Each team allowed to start 7, but Trek Segafredo only bringing 6. There's Michael Matthews, along with the German sprinter Max Walschad. We'll be looking for good results from them on the Sunweb team. Team Sky also bringing a strong roster with Jonathan Dibben, Owen Dool. Pair of British riders checking in there. Here's a look at the route. 2 laps around the circuit today. Starting in Beihai, there is one intermediate sprint at 23.9 kilometers in, then another one as they hit the start-finish line for the first time, and then the stage wraps up 107.4 kilometers. We're going to go ahead and move on to the rest of the stages before we go back to the action on Stage 1. Stage 2 takes us to Qinzhou for another mostly flat day there. Stage 3 into Nanning will be a little more difficult, but again, a circuit race there with multiple opportunities for both sprints and the KOM competition, so that should be an interesting one. Stage 4 then leaves Nanning and heads north with, this is probably the most difficult day of racing at the Tour of Guangxi, with 2 intermediate sprints coming at 44 and 96.7. There's another one at 126 kilometers in, and then the big climb at the finish, so that'll be the one to watch. Stage 5 into Luzhou. This should be another sort of lumpy profile. You see a few mountains along the route here. An early sprint at 29.2 kilometers, then 118 kilometers in, and then they hit the real mountains in the north province of Guangxi. So that takes the riders to Guilin for Stage 6, the final stage of the Tour of Guangxi. This one should be pretty straightforward, with a few intermediate sprints, a little under 24K, another one just inside 64 kilometers. And this is a relatively long stage with 2 KOMs coming at 115 and 126 kilometers for 168 kilometers total in Yulin for the final stage. But today, the race all about the circuit race, which we expected to be one for the sprinters as the riders set out. They got things sorted pretty early in the group. After a short neutral rollout from the line, they got racing just a few kilometers after they left. They hit the 0K marker. The breakaway started fast and furious, but the peloton got it sorted out pretty quickly. Great crowds turning out in Beihai as well to send the riders off, and stick around to see them roll back through. A little under 55 kilometers from now as they leave the line. So still under neutral here behind the Commissar's car. Good chance for the fans in China to get a look at the world-class riders gathered for the final stage of the UCI World Tour here. Beihai famous for its beaches. Strong tourist attraction here with hotels lining the road that the riders left on. Nice place to enjoy and relax a little bit. before the action starts. So as they hit 0K, the riders all over the road, everyone was chomping at the bit to get some good position up at the front. I think they knew that the riding would be aggressive early on. They wanted to make sure that the major teams had riders up there to at least be represented in the breakaway. First move of the day coming from the Swiss national champion. That's Sylvain Dillier of the BMC racing team. He takes a look behind him to see who wants to go with him. Now, normally we see a few attempts at a breakaway before one eventually goes, but after Dillier sort of lit the fuse, things went very, very fast, very, very quickly. Bahrain Merida here trying to go. That's also an interesting team because they have Wang Meiyin, a very strong Chinese rider, the only Chinese rider racing here at the Tour of Guangxi. So he'll have a lot of pressure on his shoulders and the shoulders of his team. But eventually, this was the breakaway. These four guys got away. They never saw much more than a minute, but this was the break of the day. Starting with Sylvain Dillier, Astana got Andre Grivko in there. Dimension Data has Nicolas Dougal from South Africa. And then Remy Cavagna, the Frenchman from the Quick Step Floors team, rounding out the four riders in the breakaway. These guys did a lot of work. They worked very well together, but the peloton was keeping a close eye on them. The gap never went much above 1 minute. Typically, once we saw it hit 1 minute, teams like Orica Scott, teams like Canada Drapac would come to the front and shut that one down to bring it under 1 minute. So Orica Scott riding for Caleb Ewan, and then Cannondale also very aggressive at the front as they would be looking for their sprinter, Walter Whippert. There's Bahrain Merida. We also saw Wang Meiyin spend a lot of time chasing on the front as well, getting a little face time in front of his home fans. So you can see at this point the gap just under 30 seconds, but the field keeping it strung out. They really kept a close eye on those riders up the road in the breakaway. They didn't let them get much time. Beautiful views from the helicopter here in Beihai, really highlighting everything that Guangxi has to offer. Back into the rotation for the breakaway, just about an hour and 20 minutes into the stage. And these guys got the rhythm worked out pretty quickly. There's Nicolas Dougal, Dimension Data rider, putting in a long pull on the front, trying to get Arrow up there. Again, not a long day, but it was important for the riders to make sure that they were still eating, drinking, staying hydrated, and staying fed. This can be deceptive on a day like today. Just over 2 hours of racing, a little over 100K. I think it's going to be an easy day at the office, but it was really important for these riders to keep the tanks topped up. So Grivko taking on some calories, staying hydrated with Cavagna in the blue jersey behind him for the Quick Step Floors team. Here's the front of the group, keeping an eye on those guys. Canada Drapac put Lawson Craddock up there. That was Wang Meiyin's second wheel. BMC also had a lot of riders up here, just in case the Sylvain Dillier move came back. They were ready to pounce on the opportunity. Same story with Movistar. They brought a strong team, and they came to play in the front of the peloton. And then, of course, Sunweb getting ready for Max Walscheid to give him good sprint position. So through the first sprint, Sylvain Dillier was the first to attack, going over, it was kind of over a bridge. Dillier took that one relatively easily. Dougal was the only rider that went with him. And then Grivko drifting off the back with Remy Cavagna. Same story with the first KOM of the day. Sylvain Dillier showing he was very, very interested in those bonus seconds in the points as well, because Dillier was definitely the most aggressive of the four riders in that breakaway. You can see won the first sprint, won the first KOM, then won the second sprint as he and Andre Grivko went to the line together. After they went through those sprints and the KOMs, things did calm down for at least a little bit. They came back together and got back to work, but that wouldn't last for long because eventually the group did split up the road in the breakaway again. I'm talking about the need to stay hydrated earlier. The temperatures got up there today. Certainly not a cool day, but not too terribly hot. the sun did eventually come out after a cloudy start to the morning. Now, it's been raining for the riders here for the last 3 days because of a typhoon that was moving through the area. A lot of riders had delayed travel, and then when they got here, they were unable to train, unable to get out and ride because the rain was so heavy. That just let up yesterday. The night before the race, really, the weather cleared up, so that was good for the riders and the organization. Highlighting some of the marine life found in Beihai here. We're right on the ocean for the start of Tour of Guangxi. Eventually we'll head north as we say goodbye to the sea and move into the mountains. So here's a good example of how these guys prepared for the sprint. Now, you see the quick-step rider Cavagna, the first to go here, but look at Sylvain Dillier right on his wheel, and as soon as he looks over, Dillier launches the attack, and that one was perfect. This was actually the first sprint. We're going back to look at the sprint right now where Sylvain Dillier clearly had the best sprinting legs out of that group of four, but really only Dillier and Cavagna had a go at it. So Dillier picks up maximum points, Cavagna in second, Grivko third, and Nicolas Dougal had to settle for fourth place out of that breakaway. More welcoming messages from the locals here at Beihai, greeting our television cameras high above in the helicopter following the race. Also a major fishing port here, so a lot of ships out in the water, bringing a lot of the seafood here into China. All right, back at the front, we'll go back and take a look at the sprint here. And really pretty straightforward for Sylvain Dillier. I don't think he had much competition from the other guys here. It seemed relatively clear who the strongest of the four here was. So Dillier, Cavagna, and Grivko, the first three through the third intermediate sprint. So Dillier keeps his perfect record here, winning the first two sprints, the first KOM, and then just picked up maximum points on the third intermediate sprint. Meanwhile, Wang Meiyin at the front of the peloton, showing off his Bahrain Merida colors for the local fans here as they went inside. 28 kilometers to go here. We did see the breakaway fall apart a little bit. We'll get to that here very shortly. But look at the teams lining up here. Cannondale is just one rider. That's Lawson Craddock, the American in the green jersey for the Cannondale Drapac squad. And then we saw Quick Step with Remy Cavagna, the final rider remaining. So he attacked, approaching the second KOM of the day. Cavagna would eventually be joined by Jonathan Lastra, the Caja Rural rider who went up out of the peloton, closed the gap, and then was eventually able to join him. So that made a breakaway of two heading into the second KOM as the rest of the riders pulled the plug. Dillier said goodbye, Dougal said goodbye, and Andre Grivko found his way out of the group as well. So there's the catch being made for Sylvain Dillier as he waits to get reabsorbed by the peloton here. And Wang Meiyin still doing work on the front. What a great ride from him today. So gap right now is 26 seconds up to Lastra, who had already left the peloton. And again, Lastra was trying to join Remy Cavagna. So they actually put the cars in the gap behind Cavagna because he did get up there, went a little over a minute, so they started to put the cars in the gap then. But the peloton wasn't having a whole lot of that because eventually they stepped on the gas, brought it back under 1 minute as the major sprint teams went back to the front. Just under 2 hours elapsed here with a little under 18 kilometers to go. And it looked like the breakaway might have a chance here. Just a small chance, but there was a chance for that break of two. Meanwhile, this was Nicolas Marini back at the car getting some service from his mechanic. They were working on the rear axle of his bike quite a lot Not sure what the deal here was. Might have had some debris caught up in the axle, but either way, they did get that sorted. We saw the mechanics with like scissors trying to cut something out. It could have been a problem with a timing chip as well. Maybe the zip tie keeping the chip on there. Or the monitor. Either way, they got it sorted, and Marini went back into the group. Meanwhile, Craddock and Wang Meiyin still working on the front here at just under 2 hours in. They did a lot of work for their teams, as they did exactly what they needed to do to try to catch these guys coming onto the KOM. Now, Cavagna was able to stay away over the second KOM. There were only 2 KOMs on offer, and it was pretty clear that he had gone all in on that move, trying to pick up the points here. So then on to the second KOM of the day, where Cavagna continued to push, but the commissars realized that this one was coming back sooner rather than later, so they got all the vehicles out of the gap on the downhill because they knew that the peloton would be chasing Cavagna pretty hard on the way down, and it looked like his time was maybe limited off the front. A lot of the sprinters just hanging at the back of the group. It wasn't too difficult of a KOM. It didn't really cause any splits in the group or anything like that. It was really just the riders that wanted to accelerate off the front, wanted to go for those points. And everyone else happy to just sit in, relax, and wait for their time at the finish. So here comes Jonathan Lastra, the Spanish rider for the Caja Rural team, who eventually made his way up to Cavagna, the last of the original breakaway riders. But he was glad to get a little bit of help up the road. And it was a late attack coming from Lastra, just about 1 kilometer to the summit of the KOM when he made his move off the front here. And not many riders able to respond to that, so he got away pretty quickly and would eventually find the wheel of Cavagna. So there's Remy Cavagna from the Quick Step Floors team, as he goes up and over the KOM here with no one in sight. So he picked up maximum points first one over, and then began a kind of technical descent. It was certainly an advantage for him to be away, but there is Lastra just behind him, so Lastra now had Cavagna in sight on the way down, and they would link up pretty quickly. You can see not a lot left in the tank for Cavagna. It was a long day in the saddle for the Frenchman in the breakaway. And it looked like he used his last bit of energy to go for that second and final KOM of the day. Then just over 10K to go, the sprint team start lining it up. Cannondale was there, Sky was there, Lotto Sudal tried to move some of their riders up the right-hand side of the peloton. Most of the big teams not worrying too much, not wanting to get to the front too early. See a nice, relatively easy pace being set by Sky and Cannondale up at the front here. Meanwhile, these guys fought it out for the last few kilometers of their breakaway, as Cavagna and Lastra tried to make it work off the front with under 10 kilometers to go, but once the peloton had them in sight, there wasn't much that they could do here. Actually got up to a pretty respectable 35-40 second gap, but that was slowly but surely brought back by this peloton. And once again, Cannondale's Ray-Pack doing a lot of work leading with Lawson Craddock early on, and then almost the entire team coming to the front here to shut down this final breakaway. Again, they would be sprinting for Walter Wippert today. Orca Scott moving one of their riders up as well. Sky put a lot of faith in their team. And this was the point where the riders sort of realized that now's the time to start to get to the front, because this is going to be it. They started sort of playing games up the road in the breakaway, and typically once that happens, it is does not spell good things for the riders trying to stay away. Certainly didn't look like Lastra wanted to do much work in the group, so he actually got attacked by Gaviria eventually, he said, all right, enough is enough. If you're not going to help, I'm going to leave you behind and you're going to be on your own. So here with the gap down to just 14 seconds behind him, Lastra takes a look back and can't like what he sees here, because that is a full-on chase effort from the peloton. I was actually impressed that these guys stayed away as long as they did. Certainly didn't give up, as Gaviria was really the driver in this group. He attacked Lastra, as I said earlier, and this was the big move, sort of the final act of the breakaway. It just wouldn't be enough for these guys as they get caught just outside of 7 kilometers coming to the line. Lastra first to pull the plug. Gaviria really never gave up until the final meters when he was away. And that would eventually earn him the most aggressive riders jersey. So there's the catch, and then the chaos started. They were really all over the road, taking it the full width of the road. A couple teams trying to find their own line. Some going to the left-hand side of the road, some going to the right-hand side of the road. It really caused a major split, but not in the typical way that we see. It was on either side of the road. That basically brought it down to a field sprint. Sunweb took the early lead here. Again, they were looking for Max Walscheid, but Walscheid was caught a little far back. Bahrain Merida had a good lead out as well. Orica Scott was there with just 2 riders looking for Caleb Ewan. But watch the blue jerseys of Quick Step Floors. Fernando Gaviria in perfect position coming into the final few hundred meters. See, just about 7 wheels back for the blue jersey. He was patient. He waited until just the right time on Walter Wippert's wheel there. And then they launched the sprint. He was able to find a clean line, able to get out, and able to get clear. And that brought it down to a relatively close sprint. The last lead out from the Quick Step Floors teammate. And at the very last minute, Gaviria finds a hole where there may not have been one before, goes all the way to the right-hand side of the road, and ends up able to seal the deal for the Quick Step Floors team, getting the win on Stage 1 at the 2017 Tour of Guangxi. Really impressive ride for Quick Step Floors, with the riders in the breakaway all day doing the work, and then after the breakaway came back, they were able to come through with the sprint with Gaviria. And big congratulations all around for the Quick Step boys as they set the tone early on here in Guangxi with a victory in Beihai. Congratulations from the entire peloton for Gaviria. And of course his teammates, the first there to greet him with Julian Alaphilippe, saying congratulations, my friend. Let's go back and take a look at the sprint. Now, watch Gaviria. He looked like he might get boxed in a little bit here between the 2 Sunweb riders, but just found that perfect hole up the right-hand side, had the perfect line, and then moved out of the way. Once he was clear and got his nose into the wind, hit it full gas, and he could not have timed that one better. Came from way far back to get the win. A very impressive ride from Fernando Gaviria, one of the top sprinters in the sport right now, as he establishes himself at the top of the sprint competition here in Guangxi. So congratulations all around, and that brought the guys to the podium for Stage 1.
Please welcome Deputy Mayor
getting the medals, flowers, and of course the adoration of the crowd for the stage winner, Fernando Gaviria, today. What a day for Quick Step Floors. So his teammate picked up the award for most aggressive in his time in the breakaway. Sort of a consolation prize for Rémi Cavagna, the Frenchman. Gaviria also picked up the red jersey. That is the Gree Leaders jersey. So he has just a 1-second lead heading into Stage 2 tomorrow in the GC. Not much for the sprinter, and he'll have his work cut out for him if he wants to stay in the GC lead as we head to the mountains into Stage 4. So he'll have a little bit of time to celebrate in the overall leader's jersey, but he's got to get right back to work tomorrow for stage 2, looking for another stage win. Sylvain Dillier picks up the King of the Mountains jersey, the blue jersey, or the sprint jersey, sorry. Obviously, for all that time in the breakaway.
Gaviria.
An easy pickup for him. And Gaviria also picks up the Best Young Rider competition for the top rider in the GC under 25. Obviously, as the overall leader, that was an easy decision. And Remy Cavagna rounds out the jerseys with the green jersey as the top climber, the KOM leader here at the Tour of Guangxi. That'll do it for stage 1. We head to stage 2 tomorrow for the final World Tour race of the season. We'll see you there.